July the 15th, garden plants. There is an extremely long list of garden plants of every conceivable colour and from every part of the temperate world to be found in London's gardens this month. The rarer species tend not to be seen in London streets, but seem confined to plant collections or plantsmen's gardens. London was not always this colourful. The Romans had no gardens to talk of, but did grow medicinal herbs and are credited with the introduction of several species such as lavender, which they liked to put in their baths. The cottage garden favourites, such as hollyhocks, were brought back by the Crusaders. Wallflowers arrived in the 11th century, marigolds in the 12th, and peonies in the 13th. In the 14th century, almond trees came, as well as cannabis and rose campion, Lychnis coronaria. Lychnis comes from the Greek for lamp, referring to the brightness of their flowers. Coronaria also refers back to the Greeks, who included the flowers in their head garlands for their heroes. Medieval gardens started to include snowdrops, lilies, passion flowers, and pinks. By the 17th century, Nicotiana, agapanthus, and morning glory were starting to appear, and gardeners were beginning to compete as to how high they could grow a sunflower. The 18th century saw gardens starting to look a little more as we see them today, with the arrival of brassy fuchsias, pelargoniums, hostas, red-hot poplars, weeping willows, and sweet peas. Sweet peas are greatly loved by Londoners. The original wild seeds were sent by a Sicilian monk to an Enfield schoolmaster, who was said to prefer his plants to his pupils. A century later, there was still only a small number of different colours available. However, after another century, around the beginning of the 20th century, suddenly there were 115 types and 264 varieties. They reached their apogee in the Victorian Edwardian period, when the Daily Mail newspaper offered £1,000 for the best bowl of them exhibited at the Crystal Palace. Princess Diana's family garden at Althorp was responsible for introducing the waved and frilled varieties that we see so many of today. The 20th century has produced a seemingly endless number of hybrids, cultivars, and varieties, so we now enjoy a truly spectacular range of colour and diversity. This is a far cry from the green, dismal apothecary gardens of the past. Other garden plants noticed a lot in July include dahlias, antirrhinums, geraniums, salvias, evening primrose, mallows, mulleins, hypericums, loosestrifes, geums potentilis, nasturtiums, and campanulas. Commonly seen climbers would include clematis, jasmine, honeysuckle, Russian vine, and more recently trumpet vines. On top of all this, there are the roses, rock plants, hardy annuals, and all the herbs to be seen in herb gardens. Lilies, because of their size, beauty, and heavy scent, are thought to be among the first flowers to have been removed from the wild and put in gardens. Some believe the Martagan lilies in Knower Wood, in Surrey, are a relic population left by the Romans, who used to eat the bulbs and used to treat their juice to treat their corns. The first to be planted were the wild European lilies, for example, Lilium perennicum and Lilium bulbiferum. Madonna lilies, Lilium candidum, were so often depicted in medieval paintings because they were probably the only ones around. The same may be true for Lilium monodelphon, so evident in Persian art. By the 17th century, Parkinson already mentions 12 different lilies in London. In the 18th century, plant hunters started introducing them from a variety of places, finding new ones in Japan and America. They were even found growing as an edible food crop in Korea and China. Significantly for breeding new varieties, in 1804 the tiger lily, Lilium lancifolium, arrived, and then in 1862 the golden rayed lily of Japan, Lilium auratum. These lilies ignited lily mania. In 1903, E.H. Wilson, one of the more eccentric plant hunters, brought back the regal lily, Lilium regale, from a remote valley in western China. He had discovered thousands of them stretching up a remote mountainside. Often travelling by sedan chair, he once broke his leg jumping out of it to avoid an avalanche. Later, he always referred to his disability as his lily limp. Nowadays, it is largely a confusing set of hybrids that we see in our gardens, but it is well worth seeking out the old species lilies where you can. You could come across a regal lily 1.5 meters high with as many as 30 flowers. Tiger lilies can even reach 3 meters in height before they give off their spicy nutmeg scent. Places to look for lilies include the London Buddhist Centre, Middleton House and Wisley. Parks have their own quite different collections of tough, reliable, vividly coloured bedding plants, including stalwarts such as Alyssa Margaratum, Clarkia begonia, Godetia lobelia, gazania and marigolds. Geometric beds usually include one or two spot plants such as Abutilon ricinus or Cleome. London's window boxes have a long and noble history of their own. Currently they are full of geraniums, petunias and labinas. Grand herbaceous borders are also required visiting this month, as they are showing off their fine collections of herbaceous perennials from all over the world. Greenwich Park, Hampton Court and Wisley all have interesting collections and may include delphiniums, phlox, agapanthus, penstemon, Crochismia cosmos, acanthus, Achillea equinox, Nymphophora, Centaurea dicenta, hosta, Astibulate, Coreopsis helenian, Ligularia, Galtonia, Litnis, as well as loosestrice, lilies, bergamots, fuchsias, and Scotch thistles. Towards the end of the month, you may even see the first dahlias, sunflowers, and hydrangeas. For rarer garden plants, it is again worth visiting the gardens at Wisley, where representatives of the following can be found: Itea, Indigofera, Coffea, Cerinthe, Rhamnea, Echinacea, Carpentaria, and Calibrachoa, as well as rare species such as Typhonia rotundifolia, Baptistis australis, Solanum rantonetti, and possibly Miss Wilmot's ghost, Eryngium gigantea. The redoubtable Miss Ellen Wilmott was one of London's most famous as well as infamous gardeners. She employed over 100 gardeners and is said to have insisted Queen Victoria kept to the path when she conducted her around her garden at Worley Place in Essex. She also had an annoying habit of scattering seeds in other people's gardens. Eryngium giganteum was her favourite, as it germinates in dry, neglected situations and goes on to produce a startlingly blue but ferociously spined plant. It is still found today in the most unlikely places and always seems to be reappearing in Chelsea Physic Garden.